Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Higher or Lower, the Premier League show brought to you by oddschecker, SpreadX and Sporting Index. I'm your host Dan Worth. I'm not George Ellick, but two familiar faces here. I mean, I hope I'm familiar too. Jack Wright on my left and Sam Tite on my right. International break's over. Start off with an easy question that I've divided X with this week. Do you think Harry Kane is England's best ever player?
No.
No.
There we go, conclusive.
What was your answer?
No.
Okay.
Oh.
But 74% of people said no, which to me felt, I thought that might be higher. There's quite a lot of good options there, right? I guess a lot of them are quite old, so maybe that rules out some people.
Yeah, it's still higher than I thought.
Yeah.
Higher. You're in.
Is that how we do this?
Yeah, that's how this game works, yeah. It absolutely is.
Have you forgotten how it works? Because you've not been here for ages.
Yeah, I haven't been here for ages.
Yeah.
I haven't been here for ages. And thrown him at the deep end to host in George's absence.
I'm sure you'll do well.
Not big boots to fill, so should be okay. No, I'm sorry, George. Hope you're enjoying your golf holiday, mate. Right, let's start then. I said it was a Premier League show, so it only makes sense we start in the EFL to completely contradict myself. And we're going to look at Sheffield United versus Coventry here. I'm going to take the midpoint of the SpreadX's markets and tell you whether we think they'll be higher or lower. Starting off with supremacy, which is the amount that one team beats the other team by. In this case, Sheffield United are 0.35 goal favourites. Against Coventry, let's go for it. 3, 2, 1. Oh, well, I know Sam is really strong on this, so I'm just going to start with him. But given that you're the outlier here, we'll have to start with you.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Oh, well, this is a huge game. What a great way to start the weekend. I'm sure you all agree with that. But yeah, Sheffield United obviously closing in on automatic promotion. Coventry stormed into the playoffs. So for me, I just feel that Sheffield United have been just about doing enough. They've kind of got a reputation for just getting over the line. They've won 15 games by a single goal margin this season, which is incredible stuff. Coventry I think they're going to come and have a go at Sheffield United. They've been sensational. I think Frank Lampard's done a brilliant job. He generally I think it's a bit unfair, he kind of gets put in the same basket as the likes of Gerrard and Rooney just because of the time they played together. And I think that's a little bit unfair, to be fair, in his managerial, what he's done in his managerial career. The Coventry players have clearly bought into him. I think one of his key elements is how he can get and bind players together, that man management style. The fans are obviously loving him at the moment, helped by the fact he's been on a sensational run. They've only lost a couple of games in their last 12, winning 10 of those as well. So a really, really good run. They stormed into the playoffs, and so I think they will come and have a go at Sheffield United, at Bramall Lane. The last team to go there was Bristol City. They got a last-minute equaliser, but generally speaking, were very unfortunate not to win that game. And Chris Wilder stunned me really by actually admitting as much. So it's quite unusual, and it was really refreshing to hear him say that, look, they were the better side, Bristol City, and there was some penalty shouts towards the end of the game that he kind of basically said were nonsense, which I say is quite unusual to hear. But I just think that Coventry have got the tools to hurt them. Hadji Wright coming back is sensational. He missed 20 games with an injury. Started his second game last time out before the international break, hit hat-trick against Sunderland. So they bounced back from that defeat against Derby really, really well. So I just think they have got the ability to go here and avoid defeat, which obviously for me is all I need for this to win. So I am going with Coventry to get a positive result at Sheffield United.
Fair enough. Sam, tell me why Jack's wrong.
I'm not in a position to tell Jack why he's wrong in this area. This is not my area. So what I was hoping for initially was for my paddle to be the same colour as Jack's. Unfortunately, my paddle is the same colour as yours.
Oh.
So it's not what I was hoping for.
Damning.
I can look at it from a face value only, really, unfortunately, and it's two teams that are in pretty good form. 10 from 12 for Sheffield United, 9 from 12 for Coventry City. It feels really even, so I just shade for the home advantage, and that is the start and end of the thought process, unfortunately, in what feels like a really close, tight game, like a 1-0 or a 1-1. You're picking between them.
Yeah, I mean, the home advantage is huge here, and I think given, as you said, Sheffield United's form, if you're looking at the fixed odds, they're odds against. I think you have to back Sheffield United here, and I know that you only need Sheffield United not to win to make some profit on the spread side of things. But if you look at the two teams since Lampard's taken over, they're basically inseparable, which to me makes the home advantage even more important because, yeah, Sheffield United have got 3 points more, but they're at home. They've been so good. And Coventry's record against the top 6 this season, I'm surprised you failed to bring that up.
Didn't suit his point.
It didn't suit his point. They've not beaten anyone in the top 6 this season.
Not yet.
Not yet.
That's
Away from home, though, actually, because I didn't check the home form.
They're due a win against the top 16 then, aren't they?
They are due.
So, I say they've obviously come on leaps and bounds over the course of the season, so Lampard's done a brilliant job there. And as you say, they're inseparable, which means getting both the draw and the win on side makes perfect sense.
Using my own rationale against me. But, I mean, like, Sheffield United, as we both said at home, we only need a win here. It's not like they need to go and score multiple goals. So if they can edge a 1-0 win here, we still make 0.65 points of profit. So I'm going with the home team to get the victory. I've just realised that I said we're going to talk about the Premier League markets here. We're not talking about any Premier League markets here. So we're going to move straight to the FA Cup quarter-finals.
It's not as easy as it looks, this
No, it's not. I thought it was a walk in the park. But the first FA Cup quarter-final we're going to discuss, an all-London affair. It's Fulham versus Crystal Palace, and we're going to look at total match goals here. Spreadex have got this priced at the midpoint of 2.55, so 3 or more goals. You want to be going higher, 2 or fewer, you'll be going lower. What do we reckon then after 3, 2, 1? Oh no.
You are George.
Yeah, I know. Like, that was actually really uncomfortable for me to do.
I'm sure it was.
Because I do have a general rule on this show that if it's 3 or fewer, or if you only need 3, sorry, I'm going higher.
Do you know what I was thinking? I know what you're going to put up here, and I know what your rationale is going to be. So, well, we've got 3 or more, and it's what I do. But it's not anymore.
Like, but occasionally on this show, I prefer to just look at this and say, I'll tell you what the score will be here.
Right.
And it's going to be 0-0 at full time.
Is it?
Yeah. So
Wow.
I needed to go lower purely because I think it's going to be 0-0. These two teams have played each other, or in the last 4 games they've played each other. This line's hit, which, to be honest, on its own was enough for me to go lower here. But I think it's going to be a super tight game. Both teams, stupid to say, obviously want to get their day out at Wembley. And as we'll probably discuss throughout, because we'll cover all 4 quarterfinals, like, every team in here has got a genuine chance of winning this tournament, I would argue. So these two teams must be thinking, like, this is as good a chance as ever to get some silverware here. So I think as a result of that, it's going to be a bit of a war of attrition, which I'm kind of, thinking 0-0, no goals at all.
So the war of attrition argument is, I think it's a good one for the stage, for quarterfinals, and I'm going to apply that to some of the games we're going to speak about later.
Except this one.
But not this one. In my mind's eye, I struggled to see this one as 2 or fewer. I think Palace are going to win. I think they're going to counter-attack them, and I think the game actually suits them really well. The way Fulham try to play at home, which is more enterprising on the ball, more possession stuff, and they do try and block it up a bit away from home, I think it threatens to play into Palace's hands a little bit here. And Palace are pretty goal-hungry of late. I know that sounds like a silly statement given they only won the last game 1-0, but the XG will tell you that was a bit of a farce, and that was probably a 3-1 or a 3-2. So, with Mateta potentially back in contention, Eza netting on international duty looking good, and Palace overall, like, the 2025 Premier League table has Palace in the top 4. They're a seriously good team this calendar year. So I think they're going to win, but I don't think they're going to keep a clean sheet. 1, 2, 3, off we go. That's it.
Yep, fair enough.
Bang. No,
anything to add?
I'm in agreement there. No, I think both sides will fancy their chances here. And I think it is that cup football. We've talked about it before, the do or die nature of it. Palace have been scoring 2 goals away from home regularly. They won this 2-0 recently, didn't they? Kind of at the early part of their really good run. So I'm of the same opinion. I think Palace will concede here. I think Fulham have got it in them to score, but I think that Palace will probably edge it. And I've got something like a 2-1 in my mind. So I can't see it being a 0-0. If it's going to go under, I think it will be a 2-goal. Therefore, it's a minimal loss. Whereas I think both sides have got their elements going forward where it's working for them. Fulham have got that kind of rotation in the top area, Munoz and Jimenez, that they can, if one's not working, it seems the other one comes in and scores. So I think they've got that going for them. And we've talked about Palace's threat. And they haven't been overworked too much in international break as well, which I think is a key element going into this one. An early kick-off on Saturday, so a bit of a quick turnaround. But yeah, I think there's enough in the forward areas to expect goals in it. And I think it should be quite an entertaining watch, to be fair.
Nice. So the guys back in goals there, I'm opposing and feeling not too great about that now after their arguments. Next game then is Brighton versus Nottingham Forest. We're looking at total goal minutes here, which is the cumulative minutes of the goals scored in that game. The midpoint here is 146, so that's 144 to sell and 151 to buy. Obviously, last time out between these two teams, there was a few goals, and I believe this made up a very, very hefty number. So will we see a repeat of that? 3, 2, 1.
We hope so.
We hope so.
Not.
Sam does not.
Speaking of war of attrition,
Yeah.
I think I'm applying it to this game. I think it's going to be really good. I think it's going to be really tight because these are two really good teams in a really good place. Like Brighton's form last 6-7 games has been incredible. They've been one of the best teams in the league over that period. They'll have some ghosts to exercise with the 7-0 that happened away from home. Probably 5-6 weeks ago. This was. It was the final result before they started winning every game in sight. They lost 7-0 and then just turned it around, which is incredible. So a bit of revenge, a bit of a repentance here. And the Chris Wood hip injury on international duty just spooked me a tiny bit. Like, we don't know how bad it is, but you know, if you lose your 18-goal striker, you're a significantly worse attacking threat. We'll see what impact that has on him regarding this weekend, midweek, whatever it might be. We're not sure as we sit here and record on Thursday, but it's just spooked me a bit. I'm seeing a tight game between two really strong sides that can probably cancel each other out, and I think perhaps the highest scoring player on the pitch won't actually be there. So that's why I'm going lower. I'm ultimately not expecting a goal fest here, so I'm sort of halving my enemies here to 1, which is the late goal, which I hope doesn't happen.
I'm hoping there's 2 late goals. Yeah. And then that just makes up on its own. I mean, maybe I'm slightly skewed by the 7-0. That obviously made up 383, which, if there is a repeat of that, is a huge profit here. Keep in mind that obviously if there isn't a repeat of that, there could be a huge loss too. So please stake accordingly. I just think there's going to be goals, and as I say, like if both teams score, which I think they will, 146 seems very achievable, and even if both teams score in the first half, you're looking at 1 goal in the second half really for this to make up. So yeah, both teams to score is a solid base here, and I think this one, I'm being seriously psychic here, but I think this one has a result in 90. So I have to suggest that one team's going to score 2 if both teams are going to score. So I think 146 looks doable for me. Jack?
Yeah, I think it's a lower line than I expected. I probably expected to be up towards 160, even higher, given the nature of how these sides have been playing recently. When you look at the goal minutes market, if you are going higher, I would generally look for a game to have at least 3 goals. And these two sides have been featuring quite heavily in that respect in the last few weeks. 7 of the last 8 Brighton games have seen 3 or more goals, 29 in total, in fact. A sequence that started, as you rightly said, with that 7-0 hammering at Forest. And Forest away games have been pretty wild in recent weeks, which is a bit of a surprise, like that Nuno kind of expectation that it's all a bit tight and cagey. All of the last 6 have seen 3 or more goals on the road. There's been 13 goals in their last 2 games. A 4-3 defeat at Newcastle.
A couple of late goals in that one.
There were.
A couple of 80s.
There were. And then a 4-2. There's lots of late goals in the one at Ipswich. So that bodes well for that as well. Again, add in the do-or-die nature of the FA Cup, where you're going to be looking for a side to be chasing at some point in time. Do these sides want extra time? That's something else to play into consideration, given that we've got a midweek full round of Premier League fixtures coming up as well. You
don't want to go to extra time. You want to get it done, but sometimes it's not up to you.
Absolutely, yeah. But and also, I think the final point is, I think this, again, we talked about stylistically a match in that last game. I think this one's a bit of a match as well, where Brighton are going to go for it at home, and Forest will look to do their usual and look to counter-attack.
Score in the first minute and see it out. Unlucky guys.
Yeah, and Brighton come back with 2 89th and 90th minute winners. Oh, what a drama! Oh, the fun of the unders on the total goal minutes is that we've been there so many times this season. When you go, oh, we're cruising here. Oh no, they've scored in the 88th minute, and then someone else goes and scores in 90 plus 6. So happy days. Yeah, but higher, I think it's a decent enough line.
Cool. Again, we're disagreeing there, which is the whole fun of this game.
That's the point, isn't it?
We give you both sides. The penultimate game then is Preston versus Aston Villa. Sam's team, Aston Villa, actually, so I'm sure you'll have a strong opinion on this one. And Preston, the last EFL representative in the FA Cup. We go for total goals. This is quite an easy one to understand. It's the amount of goals scored in the match. And the midpoint here is 3. So if there are 3 goals, it will be a push. If there are fewer than 3, you will want it to be going lower or selling. If you think there'll be more than 3, you will be a buyer, or you'll put up the higher paddle. So what are we doing here, guys? 3, 2, 1. Oh, we all agree.
Go.
We all agree.
Nice.
All on lower.
Jack.
Oh, come on, let's go to the Villa
Oh,
expert.
let's go to Sam.
Sure. I think every single time that I've been on this show this season, Villa have been on the show, and I've sat here and talked about how Villa pretty consistently score goals, but also always concede goals. I am starting to sense just a little bit of change on the goals conceded thing, which has changed my mind on this one to where I would usually be. Villa are actually in weirdly good form. It's been a bit of a strange season for Villa fans, where it's felt like a bit of a slog. Like, there's been an audience fatigue where the fan base are not used to watching so many really important games in such quick succession, like every 3.5 days on average. Like, even last year in the Europa League, right, it's like, well, Legia Warsaw, like whatever, like Zrinski, like you can go and play Callum Chambers in that and it doesn't matter. But this year with the 8 Champions League phase games into the knockouts, the Premier League is harder than ever, as we know. The top 12 teams are all brilliant. It's been exhausting to watch, and so it's almost snuck up on the fans that Villa are in surprisingly good form. They've won quite a lot of their most recent games, and all 4 of their last 4, 3 of which have been to 0. Again, it's easy to forget because you're just used to watching the team ship goals. But some players are starting to return. Boubacar Kamara back to fitness. Pau Torres back. Axel Disasi in January, making a really good impact at kind of right back, centre back-ish. Onana's fit. And so suddenly this team looks like one that is quite difficult to score against for Club Brugge, for anyone, and let alone Preston, who are in the Championship. So given it's war of attrition, FA Cup, do or die, bit of a fight, bit of a battle, and Villa just shoring up a little bit, I think Villa are going to win, but I think they're going to keep a lid on it. Could be 1 or 2-0.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the only thing I have to add really is like Preston. Their home form is very solid. And they haven't conceded more than once at home since the 6th of November. So that's obviously quite a span.
Yeah.
So I'm with you that I think Villa win here. I just don't think it's going to be like a big blowout. I think they probably win 1-2-0. I don't really see Preston scoring, largely for the reasons that you said, that Villa are shoring up at the back. So I think this has just got all the makings of a low scoring affair.
Yeah, I agree too. I think Preston will look to keep it tight and try and nick a win, and I think Villa will look to try and get the job done early, but then see the game out. Game management will come to the fore in this one. Mentioned the Premier League fixtures. My question was going to be to you, or is going to be to you, how important is the Premier League right now? Because you've got Brighton away on Wednesday, which is a massive game in that battle for the European places. So obviously you've got the Champions League, your favourites to go through here, which would then be a FA Cup semi-final, which is huge.
Yeah, so talking about audience fatigue there, Villa actually haven't played for 18 days, which has been amazing. It's been like a holiday. But then you're bang, FA Cup, Brighton, then the next game, I think it's Forest, and then it's Champions League, and then it's Premier League, and it's... So you get the 18 days off, and the team have been off to Dubai. The guys that weren't in international duty went to Dubai. No hamstrings torn as far as I'm aware, which is great. So hopefully it's been a nice warm weather training and some cohesiveness to add to this defensive mix. And some preparation for what is going to be a hell of a slog. The truth is they're all equally important because Villa have a shot at the FA Cup, no doubt. You said everyone left in this cup has a legit shot of winning it, and I agree. Villa are actually second favourites with fixed odds to lift the trophy behind Manchester City, which tells you something. But the Champions League is obviously like the zenith of the season. And you want to be back there next year and competing because you need the revenue. So there is no priority here. The 3 competitions, they're all getting stacked side by side, and it's going to be a real drain on the squad. Yeah,
good stuff. Yeah, I think it'll be a win for Villa, a tight one. Preston games don't tend to have many goals. None of the last 16 have seen more than 3 goals, and obviously we'd need 4 for this bet here to lose, given the midpoint. So, I think low is the shrewd call on this one. And, for those reasons, very good.
Lower it is then. The final game before we come on to our naps is Bournemouth versus Manchester City. Again, we're looking at the supremacy market here. And Manchester City, despite being the away team, are the favourites. 0.3 is the midpoint, which means 0.2 to sell, 0.4 to buy. So you just need a Man City win here if you're a buyer. Not putting any words in anyone's mouth, but we'll see what people are going for. 3, 2, 1. Oh, what a surprise!
No, I am surprised actually.
Oh, you are?
I thought at least one of us would have gone for Bournemouth, and the tie. But
no,
it's tough, isn't it, to ignore the Bournemouth slide? Like, really tough.
Yeah.
The form and the performance levels dropped off significantly, which was probably always coming with the 14 senior players that Andoni Iraola has to work with, and the fact that they all got injured. It wasn't that long ago that they were naming like 7 players on the bench at St James's Park that none of us had really ever heard of. So it's hard to break back out of that from a physical performance standpoint, especially when I did my homework. Dean Howson, Ilya Zabani, Milos Kerkez, Ryan Christie and David Brooks were all on duty in European stuff. And Dango Ouattara, Antoine Semenyo and Tyler Adams all flew very, very far. So the first 2 to Africa and Tyler Adams obviously to the US. So that's 8 of your players. And you've only got like 14 to begin with, and they've gone through it so there was no rest, there was no recuperation, and then they're back in against a clearly improving Manchester City side whose midfield balance is better, whose attack is starting to find itself. They're starting to pile on the goals against City in recent weeks, quite slyly as well. So I can't ignore this, and I have to expect City to win, even though it's away from home, and it will be tough. But I think they'll get through it.
Yeah, Jack?
Agreed, and my large part of my argument was going to be around about that international commitments for the Bournemouth players, and they're not necessarily used to it as much as City. City are used to at this stage of the season to be fighting on 3 or 4 fronts, aren't they? Normally got the League Cup in the bag by now, and they're then looking at how many other trophies they're going to win. So for them not to have that is a bit unusual, but I think also that puts massive focus on them. This is their season, really, the FA Cup. For all the kind of abuse they've taken really over the course of the campaign for having such a terrible season, I think Pep would absolutely love to go, and we still want an FA Cup, which is more than many of rivals can say over a course of a few seasons. So I think it puts a huge focus on them to do that, and they've got the ability to squad rotate. The key thing for me, I had a look as well as far as how I think we've been on this fade City train for a long while this season. People have been climbing on board it. I think it's got to that point now where you're going, oh, actually, Villa, enough of you. Man City are value. They're now getting go, wow. And I compared the prices, spread X fixed odds for this game. Man City are 2.38. When they played Bournemouth earlier in the season, they were 1.55 at Bournemouth. Last season, they were 1.45. And when the first season Bournemouth come back into the Premier League, they were 1.35. So a massive change, and I don't think the nature of the two sides is that much different for us to be in that position. So if the City just to win this, I had to go higher.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more for me to add there, but I completely agree with something that you said, that this is obviously, well, not obviously, because I suppose they may be still in with a shout of the Premier League, but they're not.
No.
This is their only chance for Cup, and I mean, Pep does not want that on his ego, that he's had a season at Man City with no trophies. So they're going to put everything into this, and we've seen them score loads of goals in the FA Cup so far this season, albeit they haven't played anyone as good as Bournemouth, and they did have a slight scare against Leyton Orient, but they obviously got through it. Bournemouth did obviously beat City at home this season, but as I said, that's completely different.
The two teams feel very different, both of them, up and down, from where they were at that point in the season, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think Haaland's international commitments has probably helped City here, because he had a bit of a smile on his face, scored in a couple of the games.
Yeah.
And I think that works well, and he seems to be working very well with Marmoush, which is going to be a real nightmare for any of the defence that they're coming up against between now and the end of the season. Yeah,
for sure. So we're all backing a Manchester City win against Bournemouth in the last FA Cup quarter-final then. So before we go, actually, in fact, before we get onto our naps, we've spoke about every team in the FA Cup. Who do you think is going to win from here?
Say Villa.
Do you know what? I'm going to go City. Would I back them? Probably not, because they're favourites. But I'm going to leave other teams for other people to potentially put forward as an option. But I'll go with City. Go on.
Go on, Sam.
I mean, I'm not actually going to pick my own team. I'm not mad.
Going to go for Preston.
No, I'm not that mad either. I hate the fact that I kind of already assume now that Manchester City are gonna come through this. But my second choice there would be Forest, just because they're so obstinate. And if they do meet City, they're the best equipped to beat them, I think.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So I'm going to take a similar approach. I'm not going to pick Man City because that's the obvious answer. I think Palace have got a huge chance. I agree with what you said earlier in the show that they'll beat Fulham. And I just think they're improving like every time I see them this season.
They're running hot, aren't they? If they can continue that, then they've obviously got a good
Did
chance.
they peak too early? 9 games
problem,
left,
isn't it?
10 plus with the FA Cup. I don't know.
Well, I'll go with Crystal Palace, and I think you could probably get a half decent price with them. If you look at oddschecker, you can get the best price with them. So definitely do that.
Yeah, all the odds.
All the odds. Right then, before we head off, Jack, let's have your bet of the week.
Okay, I love this bet. I would suggest this is my strongest ever bet of the week.
Wow.
It's in a market that I really like. I play it regularly. It's the most frequent I play a market with Spread X. And I'll tell you what, I'll even give you a 10 pence free Spread X bet if you can guess which game I'm going to.
Headed goals cubed.
You've remembered that, haven't you?
Yeah, it's got to be some sort of headed goals.
I see that in my nightmares.
I get Coventry have been the headed goals play. So
time's up. It's Bristol Rovers versus Mansfield Town in League One.
Wow.
And the market is first match goal.
Okay.
And I'm going lower. The midpoint is 36.5. Now, I play this market, I say, a lot. One of my go-to teams when they're playing at home is Bristol Rovers. One of my go-to teams when they're playing away is Mansfield Town. So when they're playing together, it's a dream scenario for me. Calderon's gone into Rovers and he's done a good job. But what he has done is made them very attacking. He's come from Brighton's under-18 system. He was at Alaves as well. And he's brought a real attacker mentality to Bristol Rovers. And the goals they've seen have spiked, which obviously does lend itself nicely to this market. 17 games in charge, 2.88 goals per game average. But at home, he's taking charge of 8 home league games. The average is 3.75 goals per game. So lots of goals. Of those 8 games in charge, there's been a first half goal in 7 of them. So obviously we need a first half goal. We need it a little bit earlier. Sometimes that can be a little, obviously, with 36.5, there's still 10 minutes after that would be a loser. But first point of call is get a first half goal. In 8 of those 8 games, 6 have gone lower than this midpoint line. They've scored the first goal in their last 4 home games in the 6th minute, 10th minute, 5th minute, and 13th minute. The average time of the first goal across those 8 home games is 19 minutes. So well under what we need here. And you look at Mansfield's last 10 away games, they've seen 32 goals in those games. There's been a first half goal in all 10 of those games. 9 of them have gone lower than this midpoint. They have conceded the first goal in the last 5 games in the 8th minute, 44th minute, 13th, 19th and 6th minutes. I would not put anyone off going for time of the first Bristol Rovers goal, which I think is around about 55 minutes. So again, a nice sell on that one. But the average time in the last 10 Mansfield away games of the first goal is 13 minutes. So really low. There's been a goal in the opening 10 minutes in a combined 9 of those 18 games. That's an incredible stat for both these sides. And across the season as a whole, 30 of the 37 respective home and away games have seen a goal in the first half. So really strong play for me on this one.
Sounds pretty unsustainable. So,
I was waiting for that. Yeah.
well, whatever that means. I'm not sure. Sam, your bet of the week, please.
Yeah, mine is going to be much shorter because, as stated at the top of the show, I'm not much of an EFL man and there's no Premier League to call upon. And we've covered all of the FA Cup games.
We have.
So I'm going to dip back into the one that I feel the most strongly about. And we've talked about it plenty. I think you and I agree.
Yep.
It's for Palace to turn Fulham over.
Yeah.
And Fulham are the favourites in the supremacy market. And I disagree. So that's where I'm going with that.
Excellent. Well, who am I to tell you that you're wrong? Because I completely agree with you, mate. Yeah. So Sam's going for Palace. I'm going back to Bournemouth versus Manchester City in a market that I love, and that is shirt numbers. I'm buying at 56. Shirt numbers, for anyone who doesn't know, is the number on the back of the shirt of all of the goal scorers in the game. So if your number 10 scores twice, that will make up 20. And obviously I'll need a lot more than that if I'm going to get 56. But this is an FA Cup game, and Manchester City have been playing some players with ridiculous numbers on the back of their shirts. You've got O'Reilly, who's scored multiple times already in the FA Cup this season with 75 on the back of his shirt. McT, 87 on the back of his shirt, scored a hat-trick against Salford. Foden, 47. They actually have loads of players that are well and above 10. So I just think this seems a great bet. And when you also look at how this is made up in their 3 FA Cup games so far, you've got 167 against Plymouth, 80 against Leyton Orient, which, although is significantly lower than the 167 and the one we're going to come on to, still well above 56. And 435 against Salford. Now, don't get too carried away. I'm not suggesting it's going to make up 400 plus here, but I think we could be looking at something similar to the Leyton Orient score. Also, Bournemouth can chip in. And in their last FA Cup game, all of their front six, or their most attacking six, have numbers above 10. So if Bournemouth are to get on the score sheet, you've probably got to think they add another 10 points here. And I just think, as I've mentioned already, this is City's last chance of a trophy. They're going to really go for it. That may mean that they start stronger players and the likes of O'Reilly and McAtee don't play, but I think if they get off to a flying start, they'll probably bring those guys on. I'd even think that McAtee probably will start here, given his form in this competition. I love this bet, 56. So
very nice.
We just need McAtee to score once, and it's a 31-point winner.
Yeah, happy days.
So
happy days.
Goals in that game. I hope for my bet. That's it then for this week. FA Cup quarterfinals, and even an EFL shout in there for you. Thanks very much for watching. Enjoy the weekend's football. And please do remember that with spread betting, losses can exceed deposit. Please gamble responsibly, and we'll catch you next week for some Premier League action next week. I'll get it right that time. Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you soon.